Stop me if you've heard this kind of story before. Person gets sick, person almost dies, person gets a second chance, a transplant, a donor, a miracle of modern medicine. Happy ending. Roll credits. That's not this story. This story is about what happens when the person who saved your life decides they want their gift back. And they are very patient, single heartbeat. Then low ambient horror music begins, barely audible like something breathing under the floor. My name is Caleb Monroe. I'm 34 years old. I live in Chicago, and as of 6 days ago, I am completely blind. Not because of an accident, not because of a disease. My doctors have run every test they have, MRI, CT, full neurological workup. They sat me down yesterday and told me, in careful, measured words, that my eyes are, quote, perfectly healthy, structurally flawless, but I cannot see. And I think I know why. I think I know exactly who took it from me. And I need you to understand what happened from the beginning, because I don't know how many more days I'll be able to feel my way to this keyboard. So listen carefully.
TheSpiritVox. It's alive.
It was October 14th, a Thursday. I was on Route 14, the downtown Chicago bus that runs from the Loop all the way out toward Wicker Park. I took it every day. I knew every stop, every turn, every bump in the road near the overpass on Ashland. It was around 7 p.m. The bus was maybe half full. I had a window seat, second to last row. I remember I was listening to a podcast about, of all things, near-death experiences. I remember thinking that was funny. I don't remember the impact. 1 second, there was a podcast voice in my ears. The next second, there was nothing. No sound, no light, no sensation of falling or pain or fear. Just an immediate, total, suffocating black. I woke up, if you can call it waking, 3 days later in Northwestern Memorial Hospital, and I could not see, not blurry, not dark, nothing. Like someone had simply removed the concept of vision from my brain and left a hole where it used to be. The nurse explained what had happened. A delivery truck had run a red light on Damen and hit the bus head on. 17 people were injured. 2 were killed. One of the 2 was a man they never identified. No wallet, no phone, no ID of any kind. The only thing found near his body was a wooden walking cane, old, dark wood, no markings, lying on the pavement about 6 feet from where he fell. Nobody ever came to claim him. The crash had destroyed both of my corneas. Ground glass, the surgeon told me later. There was nothing to repair, but within 48 hours they told me a donor match had been found. The unidentified man. His corneas were intact, healthy, a near-perfect match for my tissue type, which the doctors called extraordinary. Given how quickly it all happened, I signed the forms. What else was I going to do? I was 33 years old. I had my whole life ahead of me, and someone, a stranger, a man with no name, had died in the same accident that blinded me, and his eyes could give me back everything I'd lost. I said yes. Recovery was slow. The first weeks were the hardest. The surgery itself went well, but the brain takes time to accept new information. Shapes came first, blobs of light and shadow that my mind didn't know how to process, then outlines, then color, then slowly, the full sharp world. By month 3 I was reading. By month 5, I was back at work. By month 8, Dr. Nora Walsh, my ophthalmologist at Northwestern, told me my vision had stabilized at better than 20/20s. I cried in her office, not because I was sad, because I'd spent 8 months terrified that I'd never see my sister's face again, never see a sunrise, never read a book, and here I was, sitting in a bright white office, reading the smallest line on the eye chart like it was nothing. Dr. Walsh called it one of the most successful corneal transplant cases she'd ever handled. I called it a miracle. I did think about him, the donor, the unnamed man. I even hired a private researcher for a few weeks trying to find out who he was, where he came from, whether he had family somewhere who deserved to know what happened to him, what he gave. Nothing came up. It was like he'd appeared on that bus out of nowhere and simply ceased to exist. Eventually I stopped looking. I told myself I honored him by living well, by seeing fully, by not taking a single sunset for granted. I genuinely believed that was enough. October 14th, exactly 1 year after the crash. I had a follow-up appointment with Dr. Walsh that morning. Routine annual checkup. Everything looked perfect, she said. Cornea is fully integrated. No signs of rejection. Vision sharp as ever. I left her office in a good mood. The kind of mood where you feel quietly, privately grateful. I found a window seat, same side of the bus, almost the same position. I watched Chicago move past the glass, the neighborhoods I knew, the corner store, the overpass on Ashland where the truck had hit us. I felt nothing unusual until the stop just past Northwestern Memorial Hospital. The doors opened. A few people got on, and then someone sat down beside me. I noticed him immediately, the way you notice a smell that doesn't belong in a room, nothing specific, just a wrongness. He was old, very old, thin the way that goes past frail into something else, like the flesh had given up trying to stay attached to the bones and was just hanging there out of habit. His hands were folded over a wooden cane, dark wood, no markings, which he'd planted between his feet on the floor of the bus. His clothes were clean but colorless, gray on gray, pressed too perfectly like clothes that had never actually been worn. I looked at his face. I'm going to try to describe this carefully because I need you to understand it wasn't just that he looked old or unwell. His eyes were wrong, not diseased, not clouded, just wrong, too still, too deep, like looking through a window into a room that had been dark for a very long time. I looked away, stared out the window, click, click, click. The cane tapped the floor, slow and even, like a clock that knew something you didn't. I focused on the buildings passing outside. I told myself I was being irrational. Old man on a bus, wooden cane, not a crime. My reflection in the rain-streaked window stared back at me, and I noticed something. My reflection's eyes were moving, tracking the buildings, the street, the people on the sidewalk, but they didn't look like my eyes. They looked like the eyes of someone watching from very far away, watching through a window they didn't belong at, patient, still, waiting. The tapping stopped. The bus noise, the engine, the other passengers, the rain, it all seemed to get quieter, like the volume of the world was being slowly turned down, and then a voice, right beside my ear, so close I could feel the temperature of it, cold, like breath from an open freezer. Caleb. I could not move. It's been a year. My hands were locked on the seat rail, my vision was tunneling. I've been patient.
Now, give me back my eyes.
I was standing in the middle of an intersection. I don't know how I got there. One second I was on the bus gripping the seat rail. The next second I was standing on wet pavement, rain soaking through my jacket, cars swerving around me, someone screaming out a window. No memory of standing up, no memory of the doors, no memory of the steps down to the curb. Just there, in the street, like I'd been placed there. I looked at my hands, empty, shaken, but empty. And then I looked down at my shadow, stretched long by a streetlight behind me. My shadow was holding a cane. I stared at it for a long time, moved my hands. The shadow's hands didn't move. A car clipped the edge of my jacket getting past me. Someone grabbed my arm and pulled me to the sidewalk, asking if I was okay. Was I hurt? What was I doing in the road? I couldn't answer. I was staring at my shadow. The street light above me flickered, then went out. Then the next one down the block. Then the next. The darkness came toward me like a slow wave, each light dying in sequence, perfectly timed, rolling up the street in my direction. I ran. I don't know for how long. I just ran until my legs gave out and I was sitting on someone's front stoop 3 blocks away. And every light around me was still on, and the city was still moving, and nothing was visibly wrong. I sat there for an hour before I could make myself get up. I went to see Dr. Walsh the next morning. I told her everything. The old man, the cane, the whisper waking up in the street. I watched her face stay very carefully neutral in the way doctors are trained to do when a patient says something that concerns them. She ran every test. An hour later, she came back into the exam room and sat across from me. She had a look on her face I hadn't seen before. "Caleb," she said, "your corneas are perfect. No signs of rejection, no inflammation, no structural damage of any kind." I waited, but your visual cortex shows no signal reception. Your eyes are sending information. Your brain is simply not receiving it. She paused for a long time. "It's as if your eyes are present," she said slowly, "but there's nothing behind them." I've been sitting in the dark for 6 days now. Not total dark, shapes still, outlines of light and shadow, like that first month after the surgery, but reversed. The world fading back out the same way it once faded back in. I can still feel the keyboard under my fingers, still remember where the letters are, but every morning there's a little less. I keep thinking about him, the man on the bus, the man with no name, the man who died in the same accident that took my sight the first time and whose eyes gave me back everything. I keep thinking, did he choose that? Was it an accident that his tissue matched mine so perfectly, that he was on the same bus, that no one ever identified him, never came to claim him, like he'd stepped out of nowhere onto that bus specifically to be there when I needed him most? Or was it never a gift? Was it always just a loan? I don't have answers. I only have this. If you're ever offered something extraordinary, something that seems too perfectly timed, too perfectly matched, too much like fate, ask what it costs. Ask who's going to come back to collect. And if someone sits down beside you on a bus. 1 year,